Scoop guy out here, so he's not interrupting you. You have the floor, brother.
Arnold. Arnold.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Get started on the next section. You want to find a seat. We give one more round of applause for Guy and doing the branding presentation. Utility information for any stage of business.
You got my phone?
Welcome back, everybody. My name is Nathan. I am with Agent Clean Solutions. I've been with the company 4 years and worked every position in an exterior cleaning company from window washing, pressure washing, up to helping with HR and hiring, to helping with billings, accounts receivable, managing a crew, all the way up to business development and working for our mother company, which is Agent Clean LLC, under which is our franchising, our Agent Clean Solutions, and Agent Clean University. So today, what I'm going to be talking about, the class is called Business Communication, but we're also going to be taking a look into sales psychology. Part of it is to get an understanding of how people think and using that to our advantage when we're going out and soliciting business. So we talk a lot in this industry about how to do something, a lot of methods, a lot of techniques, which is great. And in this class, what we're going to do is take a deeper look and try and look at the concepts behind why these methods and techniques work. One thing about methods and techniques is that you learn one for a specific situation oftentimes. You'll learn a technique that works for situation A or a technique that works for situation B. But when you start to get an understanding of a concept behind that, then it applies to any situation, because as long as you understand the concept, you can create methods or techniques that then work and adapt to the situation. So we'll jump right in. First thing I want to talk about, most of us have a general understanding of what communication is, but I wanted to break down what communication is as a process so you understand where the breakdown starts to happen when it does happen. So communication is a process, and it is a process that includes multiple steps. The sender, or whoever the message creator is, will create their message, and they'll create it in a certain way where you have different word choice, your format. All of this communicates something differently. Context for that person. So if you've ever been stressed or hurried and you're trying to quickly type out something, generally it has a different feel than if you're calm and collected and have time to draft something the way you want it to sound. That's context. Now, in the middle of that is how you deliver your message to your receiver. This can be, are you sending it via text? Are you sending it via an email? Are you calling somebody? Are you writing a letter? What you start to look at is communication is more than just the words that you're saying on paper or out loud. It's how you're sending it. Most would consider a text message to be informal, right? Pretty informal, with an email being a step up in terms of formality, and a written letter probably being the most formal way of communicating from a written standpoint. Communication and how we talk. How I'm addressing you as a larger group of people is different than how I may be talking to someone one-on-one or talking to a small group. We tailor how we communicate to the number of people that we're talking to. We also tailor it based on who we're talking to. If this were a room full of my family, this would be going a different way, versus a room full of professionals who I'm talking to as businessmen. So on the other side of that, you have in between, when you're sending your message, there's what's called noise. Same way within your contacts. Noise can be any kind of interruption, so that could be maybe cell service is out, or the email is glitched and it sends and it doesn't have any message in it. That's what the noise involved in the actual sending of the message. And then there's noise for the receiving end. Have you ever been in a rush and you don't have time to read a text? Or you've been in a rush and you read it really quickly and misunderstand it? Vice versa, you've had a customer or someone you are texting or messaging misunderstand completely what you're going for? Stuff like this. The other thing to remember is putting yourself in the shoes of the receiver and how they're going to perceive a message. Have you ever sent or received a message that gets taken in a completely wrong way because they put their own feelings or emotions onto the text or message you sent them, and now they're mad at you because they feel like you were being mad at them? When of course you weren't, you were just in a hurry and you typed something very quickly and very short. This is where communication, you start to understand how people are perceiving your message. And why is that important? Because ultimately when we go into, for example, residential sales, understanding how your potential customer is receiving your message is very important. Are you being very assertive, and in your mind you're being confident, and in the customer's mind you're being pushy? That's where you need to put yourself in your receiver's shoes and understand how they're receiving your message. And this is where we get to feedback. Communication isn't a one-way street. It has to do with the entire process of, we create a message, we send it using a communication channel, the receiver receives it, and then hopefully we get feedback from that. There's always some type of feedback. Not getting a response is a type of feedback, is it not? You ever texted someone, you never hear back? Email someone, never hear back? I'm sure a lot of us have emailed customers and never heard back. They send you, oh, I want a quote on such and such. You send it to them, crickets. So even that is a type of feedback. So one of the things that you do in this business is you start to break down. So if you do a lot of email marketing, do you just go, oh, well, I guess they didn't want my services? Or do you start to break down, so why didn't 40% of my customers didn't open the message? 20% opened it and read it but didn't respond. And then 20% opened it and replied, and then 10% I got the job. So where do you start to, do you just throw it out as, oh, well, it's just how it goes, or do you start to look at, well, is my message too strong? Am I channeling them into my sales funnel incorrectly? Am I being too pushy? Am I giving them a quote and they're taking this to a competitor and getting a lower price? You got to start looking at how that affects your sales. So we talk a lot about businesses as being a machine, that your business machine runs because of your systems and processes or whatever it may be. Communication is like the oil for your business machine. It's what keeps all the parts working and functioning together. What happens when you have a machine or like an engine that doesn't have any oil? It starts to break down. I would say this, one of the number one breakdowns between either employees and management or your company and your customers is a breakdown in communication at some point, somewhere in your processes. Communication helps your company function and everything function together, and communication helps you connect to your customers, which is ultimately what we're going for. One of the things I'm going to talk about a lot, and I talk about this a lot when I'm doing business consulting for our franchisees, when I'm helping other companies who want to know, how do I build this brand? Branding ties in a lot to what we talk about when we talk about credibility. The credibility theory of communication states that there are 3 stages of credibility. There's your initial credibility, your derived credibility, and your terminal credibility. And we'll talk about why this is important. Your initial credibility is the credibility that you have based on things that people know about you prior to you talking to them. So for example, some of you have talked to me here at the convention, but if we look at this as the initial credibility for me would be what you know about Agent Clean Solutions, would be our branding. Maybe you've seen our website or our marketing materials. Maybe it's word of mouth. It's appearance. How is the person coming in front? Are you dressed well? Are you dressed sloppily? Is your hair combed? My hair's a little bit of a mess, so that's an issue. And kinesics. Kinesics is body language. So how does this apply to sales presentations? Well, you just had a whole thing about branding. Can someone tell me how branding would fit into your initial credibility? Branding obviously has to do with your image to your customer. If you imagine a customer hasn't talked to you, and all they have to go off of is what they've seen. So they know, okay, they've been to your website, and they've seen your logo. They've looked up your services, whatever it may be, or they've got a friend who told them that you're the one to go with. That's your initial credibility. Credibility you can think of as a line on a chart. Okay, a scale of 1 to 10, your credibility is somewhere between there at the beginning, depending on how good your initial credibility is. Does anyone know a company that has rubbish branding, doesn't have a good website, doesn't have any of that? Their credibility starts real low, but they have such good customer service, has got such good presence that their credibility goes up when they meet the person and they still end up getting a sale. Anybody know anyone like that? That's great if they can do it, but what makes it tough? It is extremely difficult to go from a low level of credibility to a high level of credibility because you only get one chance essentially. What you do is when you start to develop your branding and everything ahead of time is you start to prime the customer for you to come in and make that sale. And this is why this is so important. We'll talk about it multiple times in this class is if you can maintain or build your credibility throughout a sales call, your likelihood of getting that sale is a lot higher because what you do is you start to present yourself as the expert to the customer and they're more likely to trust you and accept what you're saying as the truth, which we know we are telling the truth, but we also know we have to convince the customer of that. Your derived credibility is any credibility you gain or lose while you're communicating with the receiver. So for us, that's going to be, I always tell my guys, get in front of them. Give a real presentation. Try to avoid having a situation where you never get to talk to the customer. Now, sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes they don't want to talk to you, they just want an email, and it goes from there, and you might get the job, you might not. But we want to try and get in front of our customer and build our credibility with them. Everyone knows that you can't really put all of the details of a job into an email. You need to be there to walk them through and tell them why this is a benefit for them. There's a couple reasons for this. How many of you will read a long email? The attention span of people is so short nowadays that trying to expect a customer to read multiple paragraphs on why your services are best, they're just going to click on and hire someone else. But if you're in front of them and you're talking about their house, you're in front of them, you're talking about their things.